dealing with the king. If you wanna come and get it, let the outlaw get you out your seats. You want sports talk, politics? He don't give a shit. Roka says speaks, follow it. About to issue y'all a masterclass. You wanna pass? Gunslinging the new podcast, eat candy ass. Gravitas bench, get information. It's your boy John Roka. Welcome to the Outlaw Nation.
All right, welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Outlaw Nation podcast. I am John Roka, aka the Outlaw. How are you all doing? How's your week going? How's your last couple of weeks going? Is everything going well? Are you focused on your shit? Are you doing your job? Are you working on things you need to be working on? I'm just asking because I care. You know, because some of you send your messages and you send your stuff, and I love keeping up to date with you all and hearing all the things that are going on in your lives, but I also want to know that you're making progress. I also want to know that you're getting there. I also want to know that you're like taking steps forward. And sometimes they might not be there may be baby steps. There might be like half steps, even quarter steps. What's less than a quarter? Like 1/7, 1/6 steps, 1/10 steps, whatever it may be. But I'd like to know that you're moving forward, that you're like kind of figuring things out as you go along, kind of get yourself in the right headspace and moving forward to where you want to be. You know, it's all, listen, this life is hustle. This life is work. For those of you who want to accomplish what you want to accomplish, unfortunately, that's the way it goes. You know, not all of us are born with the silver spoon in our mouths. Not all of us are born lucky. You know, there are some people you just know who everything just works out for whatever reason. You know, and they're usually the people that worry the most about shit working out, and shit always works out for them. So, like, I get it. So I just want to encourage you guys and kind of motivate you guys and send you support that I hope you're doing the things you need to do to put your things in motion, put your life in motion to get to where you want to get to. So there he is. There's a little like positive speech right at the beginning of the show this week. You guys are listening to me on the SK Plus podcast channel. Thanks so much for downloading the episode and for listening, and also for if you're patronizing or supporting any of the other shows that are on the SK Plus podcast channel. Do so, please. We are so appreciative of all the support and the love and the comments and the listens that you guys give us. You got the Wanger show, the Don't Be a Beardo show, after Schmodown Rundown. So many great shows on there. And of course, the Top 10 show with Matt and I coming back, which has been great. And you guys have been great with your responses. I hope you're enjoying what we're doing. You know, we just had top 10 movies with a city in the title. We did that in honor of Detroit for Catherine Bigelow. So that was fun. It's always great to vibe with Matt again. Like, Matt's one of we're two different people. I know people are like, you guys work so well together. Why can't you guys do more? And it's like, well, Matt and I, we're just two different personalities, but we work. Like, we have great chemistry on the mic, and but I approach things from a different way. You guys know I can be a passionate person, I can be an emotional person. It's just my way of approaching things because I hunger to get to what I get to, what I want to get in life. And, Matt's more laid back. Matt's more chill. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes negative for both of us, And so we were kind of, when we stopped doing the show, we had kind of hit our limit on the podcast version of the show because we were just doing too much. And so being able to hand things over to Collider and do it on the Collider, that really alleviated our relationship. And then taking the 9 months of a break and staying occasionally in touch and seeing each other's Schmodown stuff was nice for both of us, And the offers that popped up, the possibilities that were in play at times, and then things worked out the way they worked out. But Matt and I are happy doing the show again, and it's a blast, and we got a schedule that works for us, and we're both recording, so there's a lot of like separation of duties, like doling out duties that's fair and balanced for both of us. And that's really important because we're both really busy guys. And so it's nice to kind of come together and take a break and have a little fun and shoot the shit. So there's all the shows on there. So please leave comments, leave likes, leave comments on iTunes, do star ratings on iTunes, 4 or 5 stars on iTunes, and everything you can and YouTube as well. Leave comments on YouTube. I may not always respond to every comment on YouTube, but I certainly read every comment on YouTube, even the bad ones, even the angry ones, and so they're calling me all kinds of names, social justice warrior, all that bullshit that they want to do. It's fine with me. It doesn't bother me. It really doesn't, because I believe what I believe, and I know what I believe is from years of study and research and understanding and intelligence and my own personal approach to the world. You know, those of you who listened to the first episode of the Outlaw Nation podcast, you got a real huge window into how I operate and how I look at things and why I look at things the way I do. So people can insult me all they want. They can come after, like people were coming after me for the global warming thing when I made the comparison to White Walkers and global warming, as if that was some kind of stretch, you know, to kind of shove that into the show, as if politics and people's biases or people's issues that they want to support and explore are like never in entertainment. I hate to break it to you. Politics is 90% of entertainment. It really is, especially with movies. Yeah, shit like Dumb and Dumber. I don't want to talk about that. I'm talking about like dramas and even some of the darker comedies or the stronger comedies. They will explore some of these social issues in a comedic way, but still have little things in there that push certain agendas, certain social agendas that are about inclusiveness, about accepting everybody, about creating space for everyone in the world. And so, you know, I hate to break it to you, it's there. So when I'm talking about the global warming and the White Walkers, all I'm talking about is that, you know, it feels that way because Benioff and Weiss are off the books. So they're creating stuff based on what they're being influenced by in the society. And one of our largest things right now are politics. Politics are huge. And so, especially with Trump and all the lunacy that he's got going on in his life and in his world, and creating in our world, not just here in the country, but also in the world, that's going to bleed into creators. And it's no secret that this is one of the most liberal places in the world. So logically, it's going to creep into their entertainment, influenced by the stuff that's going on. And they're trying to make a statement, a subtle statement, but it's still a statement. And I would be remiss as an analyst, as a critic, as a person who enjoys consuming this media, to not point it out. It would almost be an insult to the creators and directors and writers, producers and actors, all involved in productions, to not point out what they're trying to kind of subtly hint at, or what they're trying as an underground meaning. Or even if I'm way off base, it's what I'm seeing. And as a human being, let alone a critic or pundit, whatever you want to call me, I got a right to analyze things as I see them happening in my own world, my own interpretation of things. You know, it's a subjective medium. So logically, you're going to have subjective points of views about what you're watching. So I'm always confused that people get mad at my analysis. You can disagree. Hell, disagree to the nth degree for yourself, but like getting upset about it is something that I don't understand at all, you know, because it's my interpretation of it should affect you in no way, shape, or form in terms of ruining what you're looking at, or trying to color it in a certain way that's not, like, you know, correct. Like, you believe what you believe. Be staunch in that belief and be firm in that belief, you know, and you might want to open your mind to other interpretations, other approaches, other views. Sure, that's your right. And it's your right not to. But don't waste your energy getting angry about it. That just makes no sense. You know, a lot of things other than the world that are actually going on that you can get angry about, you know. So, and people misunderstand. I'm a passionate guy. They think I'm angry all. Trust me, that's passion. That's just standard stuff in my household. That was how we were raised and grew up, and that's how you got to get heard. That's how you got to be seen. You know, we had to be the most passionate people in the room, and you know, and it's just how I'm raised. You know, I go home and I sleep peacefully at night. I don't carry any kind of anger or rage to sleep. It just doesn't happen. You know, and so I've been through the darkness. So to come out and be doing the things that I'm doing so quickly after some really, really tough months in my life, I'm very happy. You know, doing what I'm doing. I'm not 100% happy in terms of where I'm at yet, but I'm getting there, and that's a positive. That to me is a positive all around. So, anyway, speaking of politics, later on in the show, Steve Morris is coming on. I finally found some time to interview him for the show. He really wanted to come on after the Boy Scout situation with Donald Trump, because he's a legacy Boy Scout. By that I mean his dad was an Eagle Scout, his grandfather was an Eagle Scout. You know, there's scouting is in his blood and is in his legacy, and I'm sure he's going to pass it on to his son Jackson. So Steve is coming on a little bit later on the podcast to talk about all the stuff going on with Trump that he was like so motivated to reach out to me. It's like he texted me. He's like, I know I don't want to push you, but I really would like to come on and talk about all this kinds of stuff. And you know, I hadn't lined up a guest, and it just perfectly made sense to have Steve come on, and we talk about a lot of stuff. And for those of you who don't know who Steve is my co-host on the Cinephiles podcast, Cine-Files. that we have on iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. And, we break down one film that came out before the last 10 years. So, we like to give about 10 years of space for films. So, like anything before 2007 is game for us to look at and explore and talk about and break down in production history. And we've done a few episodes, that we've done 50, like 40, 50 episodes now on the show, which has been great. A lot of fun, a lot of great stuff. And we've got some guests coming on soon. That'll be enjoyable as well. And I think you guys will get a kick out of it as well. So anyway, Steve's going to come on a little bit later. We're going to talk a little bit of politics. But anyway, so it's been kind of a very, very busy last couple of weeks, coming off of Comic-Con. I hit the ground running on Monday with all the stuff that I'm doing. And, adding the column workload to my life has been an interesting situation because, I'm doing all these things outside of my regular job, which is the Universal Studios stuff. You guys know I work at Harry Potter. It's interesting now to kind of like, I'm essentially working 60 to 70 hours a week. And it's something very, very new to my life. And so balancing my time to be able to fit in time with friends, to fit in time to watch the stuff that I need to watch so that I can talk about it on the shows, it's been interesting. And then, of course, writing these columns, you don't have to do research, and I'm looking at points of views and, writing out my own thoughts and feelings about things. So it's a lot. And but I'm very happy to do it. I'm very fortunate to be doing it, but it does take a lot out of me. So I've been nothing but exhausted almost every day since I got back from Comic-Con. And on Sunday, I was able to take like 8 hours and just lie on my couch, close my eyes, and listen to my music. That's all I did. Like I turned everything off. I think I woke up every couple hours, or I open my eyes every couple hours or a few hours, and I would like look at Twitter for a second and then put it back down and then go back to listen to my music. And you need to recharge the batteries, and it happens a lot as you get older. Like the need to be energetic is important. So to not have that time, not make that time is can be perilous for you as you get older, because because to be able to talk on all these shows that I talk on, to be able to like have my ideas at the fingertips, be able to talk, education. Talk intelligently about the things that I want to talk about. I need to have all my wits with me, and so without them, I will ramble on, or I'll like get confused about making a point. Which you guys, I'm sure you guys, if you've seen me on all the stuff that I've done, there are moments where I just kind of can't find the words, and it's because I'm just so burnt out from everything else that I'm doing. But I'm giving the best effort I can. So many crazy things are happening in the world now that like it's fun and then insane at the same time. Like all the stuff going on in the NBA with Kyrie is just nuts, man. I mean, it's so interesting. Those of you who are casual observers of the NBA are like kind of like not that big of a deal in the NBA. Like you, I don't know if you know this, but this is kind of huge. Nobody would have left Jordan in his prime. Shaq is the one who really left Kobe in his prime, and it was really forced out because it was a power struggle between Shaq and Kobe to see whose team it was going to be going forward. And they ended up going with the younger kid. It made sense at the time. But you see this happen to like LeBron at times. I think it's interesting because I think he brings it on himself. I think he's one of these guys who's kind of passive aggressive about his viewpoints in the world, and he posts these videos that are fun. Like LeBron is allowed to do whatever he wants to do. He is the king. He has won championships. He is allowed to be the kind of athlete he wants to be. He feels like being, letting more of his personality come out, letting it be more playful, being whatever, more available. But he also posts these things like he posted like after that loss at Houston, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, where he's like looking at himself in the mirror, like taking a selfie of himself all sad in the mirror. That kind of thing just invites criticism. And so I just feel like he's been one of these people he's like the rebound relationship, like, right? He's like, he came in and he just wants to be appreciated and loved for his skills and his abilities. And he just wants you to like him too and enjoy what he can do on the court. But since he came into the league, it's just constant criticism. He's a choker. He passes the ball instead of taking the last shot. He can't carry a team to a championship. What does it matter if you can get to the finals if you can't win it? Oh, he bragged about winning 7 championships. He only won 2. They were lucky in that bounce against the Spurs, and Ray Allen hitting the 3. Ray Allen really won that series. Or, when Cleveland, they went down through, it's because Draymond got suspended. Like, nothing is ever done without qualifiers for LeBron. It's almost, people cheer for him not to win. He irks them, he irritates them in some way. I don't know if it's because he's so incredibly athletically gifted, and seems to not work at it, but he works at it all the time. I think people just assume he doesn't work at it, or it is his passive aggressive nature, his kind of like throwing his teammates under the bus type stuff that he does in interviews that really unsettles people, and I can understand that. Like, I get that, because when you admire the captains that are like, we all lost today, like we lost today. I could have played a great game, but I could have done more. Those are the people you respect, But LeBron sometimes tells a little bit too truthfully about how he sees it or how it is, and it rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And I'm not surprised that Kyrie is one of these people that it rubs the wrong way, because Kyrie basically had LeBron thrust upon him and then had to make it work with LeBron, and that's not always easy. You have the greatest player in the history. You have one of the greatest players in the history of the NBA, and certainly the greatest player in the NBA currently, dictating terms of roster movements and how to play, what coach even. He was essential in forcing David Blatt out. No matter what they say publicly, behind the scenes, he was the driving force of that. And it brought him a championship. But I think Kyrie wanted the team to be his team, and now he is doing that. He is going to find himself someplace else. And I was ready to get Matt Nose to come on the show and talk about the NBA stuff, free agency and everything like that. But every time we're close to doing it, some new wrinkle, some new piece shows up, and we have to wait. Like the Kyrie thing, now we're going to wait till Kyrie gets traded or signs with someone, or however they're going to work it out. That Kyrie leaves or stays in Cleveland, which would be insane. We're going to wait, and once he does that, then we'll record the podcast, because I think he's the last piece of the puzzle in all these things to see how it plays out. So this week I went to see a couple of films as well. I saw Dunkirk. So here's what I say about Dunkirk. I think I enjoyed my experience in the theater, but the thing that I will say is that it's very clear that Dunkirk is not a melodramatic film. It's not a standard war film. It has kind of a lot. It's almost like a little bit of a cousin to Thin Red Line, to Malick's The Thin Red Line, because it's kind of told out of sequence. It jumps back and forth in time, but you don't get a lot of background about the characters. The way I've described it to friends and people who haven't seen it yet is you get a window into these soldiers' lives at this time during these last few days at Dunkirk. So you don't get to find out like, hey, oh yeah, I have a girlfriend back home, or I have a wife back home, or like my mom and dad are waiting for me. Like, there's none of that melodrama or storylines put out there for you. So I'm going to talk about Dunkirk. Is a spoiler. Bit of a spoiler. I'm not going to get too deep in the spoilers. I'm just going to tell you this is what the film does. It just follows these guys as they try to navigate this situation, and then people come sporadically through the movie who come out of situations, are in, like, some of them are flying, some of them have already crashed in a boat, but it's told out of sequence. So you have to essentially figure out the timeline as you're watching the movie, which I think is great. I never have a problem with that kind of stuff. But I felt like this Dunkirk was powerful, but didn't have an emotional resonance, is what I would say. And maybe if you're British, it's more powerful to you because you grew up with Dunkirk, you understand Dunkirk, you know what it meant. But for American audiences, unless you studied this battle or were engrossed in the Dunkirk narrative, then I think it's very difficult to connect to the characters that are in the movie. But that being said, Nolan does a fantastic job as the film. The 70mm, if you see it in 70mm or see it in IMAX, it's really the perfect way to see the film. Rarely do I say go see the film in IMAX or 70mm. This is one of those films you have to, because it's just the scope of it, the planes, the war sequences, all that kind of stuff is just super intense. And the score by, I think it's Hans Zimmer and Benjamin Wilfors, it's a very powerful score that unsettles you at times with the pace of it, and also the actual sounds of the sound of the instruments, the sound that the instruments are making as they go through the sequences, the harrowing sequences, and there are long periods of silence, which I think builds up the tension and builds up like the inevitability of something happening that might not be 100% positive. So I think Nolan does a great job with that. So I would definitely recommend going to see it. But I thought it was going to be more powerful than it actually was, or more moving than it actually was. And in the end, it felt like there wasn't much exposition, and you were just thrust into the movie, and you had to go along or not go along. It was your choice. And so some of my friends didn't like it, and most of my friends did. So it's definitely a mixed bag there. And then I went to see Atomic Blonde, which I enjoyed. And I get the issues with the story and what have you. Like, it's a bit disjointed. It's a bit all over the place. Totally get that. But I think the actors saved the movie. And Charlize definitely, obviously, number one, saves the movie. James McAvoy does a fantastic job. Toby Jones is in there. John Goodman. So many great actors involved in the process. And Sofia Boutella, of course, is a French CIA, or a French agent, rather. And so there's a lot that, until Schweiger shows up, which I haven't seen since Inglourious Bastards. So there's a lot of good actors in the movie. But Charlize obviously still is the reason to go see the movie. And she has these amazing battle sequences that are hardcore. And there's one sequence on the stairs. When you see it, you'll understand. It is bar none in the top 10, if I can say that, of fight sequences ever seen on film, like ever recorded on film. And she's so amazing in it. And there's no cuts. Unless they did some CGI trickery with her body double and her, she is taking all the bumps and the bruises and the hits and the smacks and the stabs and the punches. She takes it all in this long sequence with no cuts. It feels like just one take. So you got to admire the choreography of that, the acting of that, the direction, where he moved the camera, all of that, the cinematography, all of that, in enjoying that fight sequence. And Charlize does a great job. She is tailor-made for films like this. And so I'm glad one director and one script finally got like how great she can be as an action actress. And, I loved her in, Fast and the Furious 8. And obviously, I think she did great work with Aeon Flux. Aeon Flux is not a good movie, but she was great in it, And so to see her do some more action stuff has been a blast. Yeah, so I would recommend the film if you want to enjoy. If you're not looking for a complex story, go and have a good time. Support this movie also because I think Charlize did a great job in pitching the movie at Hall H when I was there, talking about how she wanted to create this character that had no background, wasn't like a secret agent because her son died or her husband died or any of that bullshit. It's because she's just a badass from the beginning to the end, and there's a couple of great twists that keep you on your toes, which I enjoyed as well. So I recommend it. I think if they do a sequel, I think they'll do a better job with the story. But the way it's built now, it's certainly an enjoyable time in the theater. So I wouldn't begrudge anybody going to see that. Let's see what else here. So the columns. I'm getting some really nice feedback from people about the columns that I'm writing for trackingboard.com. If you haven't read any of my stuff, it's at tracking-board.com. A lot of people have been really great at leaving me compliments and supporting my writing as I walk into this like a newbie. I've obviously written stuff before. I wrote for schmoesknow.com a few articles, and I've written stuff over the years. But this is one that really stepped forward to motivate me to write more and get into exploring how I construct these articles and what I do with them and how I bring them to life and like source them. There's all kinds of stuff I'm learning. And I got to give a shout out to Amy Awesome and Rachel Cushing, who were great the first couple of weeks when I was like really nervous about writing and putting these things together. They were really great. Like I would submit my columns to them before I submitted to my editor so that they would give me some notes and give me some ideas of how to get it right. And then I would submit it to my editor, and Jeff Snyder has been fantastic. Like his touch-ups on my work have been nothing but perfect and enjoyable and keep the spirit of what I'm trying to say, but just clarify things a little more firmly for me, which I really, really appreciate. And, so when you guys give me a compliment, just know you're complimenting Jeff Snyder as well. Well, I mean, how long can we resist not talking about the mooch? That's so nuts what went on in the Trump White House. It just was crazy with everything going on with that guy because he came in like gangbusters. Then there was like saying all these things that he said to the New York Times or to the New Yorker or New York Times, one of those reporters, and telling Bannon he wants to suck his own cock, like all those things that you're just like, well, that's certainly an entrance. And people certainly noticed you, but at what expense? Because it seems like his wife divorced him. He didn't get to be there to see the birth of his child. And then he got fired. Like he did all this because he surrendered, I think, holdings in a company or surrendered his company and paid $10 million to get out of the whole situation so he could serve Trump. And then he got fired. So, and then he's seen after he got fired at a Trump restaurant having dinner. So you're just like, what? How deep does this lunacy go? Did they just make a scapegoat out of him and just let him go? Like, what was the logic of this? So, just so much of it is just overwhelmingly ridiculous, and this isn't, once again, I say this every time when I talk about this. This is not about Republican or Democrat. This is about the country and what this fool is doing to the country, to the general feeling about the country, he called the White House a dump. Like, what is wrong with you? Why would you speak like that? But he's gotten away with speaking like this his entire life. Why? Because no one's physically kicked his ass for saying this shit that he says, because he's always protected by security, because he can afford them. He's rich as hell. Or he's never lost anything that really cost him. I know he went bankrupt and all that kind of stuff, but he found his way out of it, and so I don't think he's ever lost anything that really cost him for his behavior. Even the way he treats his son is not great. Like he messed with that statement, and now people are coming out saying like, oh, well, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Oh my God, I can't even with her, but she's just like, oh, well, so as a father would try to help his son, as if like helping your son do treason is a father-son activity. Like, what kind of lunacy you're talking about? The amazing spin they put on shit when they're talking from that pulpit is madness to me. As ridiculous as people say about fake news or mainstream media, which is all ridiculous, really, all those terms are stupid as shit. It's just frustrating to me because you are a consumer of news. You can decide what is real and what isn't real, what is fake, what isn't fake, what is alternative, what isn't alternative, what is truthful, what is lies. Why do you need to brand an entire network, brand everything from a newspaper source or from an online source? Fake news, if they disagree with your emperor, because that's basically what he's lining himself up to be, our emperor. I think it's ridiculous. You got to keep an open mind. You got to hear the other side. You got to understand where people are coming from. And you can't put your head in the sand and be like, la, 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 what about Hillary? La, 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 what about Obama? That's not how this works. He's the president. There's a certain level of responsibility that comes with being president and expectation. And if you can't do it, you step the fuck on out the job. That's how it works. You should step the fuck on out the job. So we'll see what happens. It's just, I don't know. I feel like that Scaramucci thing would be a hilarious Lifetime movie, don't you? Like, it would be great to do the 10 days of Scaramucci, like, minute by minute, hour by hour recounting of his time in the White House would be absolutely brilliant. You have someone play his wife who's like divorcing him and everything like that. So just would be genius. Anyway, all right. Well, that's enough talk from me. Let's get to my guest. As I told you, Steve Morris stopped by. We had a great conversation about Trump, like just exploring all the frustrations we feel, and also trying to be fair and equal to the people who voted for him. I try to do that on the show all the time. Like, I understand why people voted for him. I understand that they wanted to mess up the status quo a little bit. The millennials voted for him because they were like, they'd grown up with him on the Celebrity Apprentice, and so it was like, what's a big deal? Let's see what happens. And so this is the result. This is the result of what could happen. So Steve and I break it down right after this break. All right, welcome everybody back to the Outlaw Nation podcast. As promised, as trumpeted at the beginning of this podcast, I am welcoming my co-host of The Cinephiles, which if you haven't been listening to it, what the hell's wrong with you? It's on iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. The Cine-Files. This is a guy I've known for a long, long time. We've had some great conversations about life and movies and the world and our ideas and philosophy and whatever. But one of the big things that we always discuss is politics. And he has been asking me, like, when these things happen, he's like, I'd love to come on and talk to you about it. I'd love to come on. So I'm like, yes, you're absolutely right. I should have had you on. So let's bring you on. Here he is. One of my dear friends, Steve Morris.
Thank you very much for I'm so happy. It's so funny to be talking to you under these circumstances when I'm so used to, like, doing the Cinephiles. Yeah. And this is a different thing.
Right. You get to relax now because you do so much work for the Cinephiles, getting those episodes ready and editing all the stuff into those episodes, which people love. So it's
I love
nice.
doing it.
Well, yeah. And I'm sure everybody loves that you do it because it sounds so good. So it's great to have you on the Outlaw Nation. But in this way, you can just relax.
I know.
You don't have to worry about the order of anything or if we've gotten scenes out of order. So we can just sit around and talk. But Steve, you tell me your history with the Boy Scouts, because this is what motivated you to text me. Like we talked about it. I'd said definitely we'll talk about it, but I was kind of laying off the political stuff, and then this Boy Scout stuff happened, and you texted me. You're like, look, I want to come on. I want to talk about this, and I was like, absolutely, let's make this happen. So tell me what your history was and why this one really affected you.
It really got me. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot going on, and every single day it seems like something else is happening.
Yeah.
And for remember watching that speech to the Jamboree, and I thought back to 30-something years ago when I was at a Jamboree.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about scouting. And the truth is scouting has a real big part of my life and my family. Yeah. And that my grandfather was an Eagle Scout and my dad was an Eagle Scout. And when I got my Eagle Scout, it's my dad who was my Scoutmaster who pinned it on me.
Wow.
And if you were to ask my dad, what rule do you live by? And this is 100% true. He said this over and over again. Yeah. My dad would say the Scout Law. That's what he lived by.
Which is be prepared?
No, that's
the motto.
That's the motto.
What is the Scout Law?
The Scout Law is a Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent.
Oh my God, I just had a flashback to when I was a Boy Scout. Yeah, I remember that. Okay.
Yeah, and I thought about like, well, what that means. Mm-hmm. What does scouting mean? And what I started to think about was that there are certain principles that exist within scouting that are deeply connected to principles within our own democracy and within America that are to me are beyond politics. And I think this is why it got me so much, is that within the Scout Law and there are all these other sayings within scouting, like do a good turn daily and be prepared, of course, but also leave each place better than you found it, which to me is not just campsites, but the environment and everything else. There's so much in scouting tradition about service and sacrifice and duty. And I started to think that those ideas are so core to how America works, because intrinsic within them is that there are things that are beyond your own needs, that there are things that are beyond self-interest, beyond your own desire, and that we have the ability and the duty to look beyond ourselves at a greater good. And those things, I think, are in the current culture what is eroding. These are pillars within our society that are falling apart, because we're no longer believing that those things are true. When you attack, when you attack, for instance, a judge and say this person cannot be unbiased because they have a Latino heritage,
Mexican heritage,
that therefore they can't. And the whole principle of our society is that we can look beyond ourselves and our circumstances and do the right thing. Right. And if you attack those things, then all that you have left is the thing that Trump keeps asking for, which is loyalty. Personal loyalty. And not loyalty like the second thing in the Scout Law is trustworthy, loyal, helpful. Well, that means I'm going to be loyal to my friends. I'm going to be loyal to my family, to my country, to my ideals.
To my Boy Scout pack. What is it, pack? Or what is it?
To your troop.
Your troop.
Troop. To my ideals. That's not what Trump's talking about when he says loyalty.
No.
What Trump is talking about is you need to be loyal to me.
Right.
He's not saying I will be loyal to you. In fact, as we see throughout all of the firings and in his entire history, he's not a loyal guy.
No.
We're not going to be a loyal guy. Trump's not a loyal guy. What he's saying is be loyal to me.
Exactly.
He's saying that regardless of principle, that you're going to side with me.
Right.
And when he attacks, so he talks about Mueller's assistants and says, they can't be doing a good job because they supported Hillary Clinton.
Right. And donated.
Right. And so what he's saying is that whatever your bias is, that's who you are forever, and you're just going to fight for your team. And I want someone who's going to be loyal to me, and whatever I do, whatever I say, they're going to fight for me, not because of principle or because it's right, but only because they're loyal to me.
Well, the irony of the whole comment, too, is like this idea that he is not loyal to anyone that he employs or he's with. He drops in a moment. We just saw I don't know how to say his name correctly. Reince Priebus. He was let go. Lynch was moved in. Now Lynch, who's a military guy, is in charge of the staff. So it said that's going to be even harder. Scaramucci's brought in. Scaramucci, all he's talked about is how much he loves him. But 2 or 3 years ago, both Trump and Scaramucci were donating Democratic candidates. He had donated to Bill. Trump had. So there's no
he donated to Hillary's Senate campaign.
So to me, that's the thing that's frustrating about the situation is there's no consistency in principles, in beliefs, in a modus operandi. There's nothing. It all is whatever is happening in the moment is the best situation that I can have. That's all I want. It does not have to connect to the moment that just happened 10 minutes ago. Nope. Not at all. It has to be whatever's best for me in this moment, right? And so to see all the things that are happening and the amount of turnover in that White House is mind-blowing. Even Rex Tillerson is floating out things where he might take a break as Secretary of State. When did Hillary take a break as Secretary of State?
I think he is taking a break.
He is.
There's an implication that he might be quitting.
Yes.
That's been the rumor.
That's the thing.
And this is the thing, is that...
You take vacation, take a break is something else.
Is that there are all sorts of political things that we might disagree about. You know?
Oh, sure.
But this is not my... It's like... My objection is not the fact that there are things that we might disagree about.
Right.
My objection is it's the fundamental principles of our democracy that are under threat.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, not talking about pro-choice versus pro-life. We're not talking about health care for everyone.
We're not even talking Republicans versus Democrats.
No. What we're talking about is that if you attack the courts and the press and the electoral system and the Boy Scouts of America, those are the pillars that hold up our democracy.
Right.
And that's the dangerous thing. If you say to some police, you need to rough up your prisoners, your suspects more. And if you say to Boy Scouts, I want your loyalty. And if you say to Scaramouche that you got to just kick ass and fire anyone who doesn't, toe the line, none of this has to do with policy.
Right.
This has to do with what do we believe about a democracy. Now, is it true that politicians all the time reverse themselves? Sure, they do.
Yeah.
Is it true that there are public faces and private faces within politicians? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's a reason that we want the public face. Is that we, to some degree, we want to tell the story of America, even when it's not 100% true.
Yeah.
Particularly to kids, is saying like, this is the place where anybody can succeed. Does that mean that anybody can really succeed? No, probably not.
Right.
But we want to tell that story because if we stop telling the story, then nobody can succeed.
Right. Right.
If we stop believing that elections can be possible and fair, then there is no reason to have an election. We might as well throw the whole thing out and start over.
Well, that's what I think is the subversive nature of his administration. You're right. It's very much about deconstructing the pillars of American democracy. It really is. It's turning us into the North Korean dictatorship. This is what he wants.
That's his model.
Yeah, Scaramucci comes out and he's talking about how Trump was hitting free throws in a full-length trench coat. He talks about him hitting holes in wands. He talks about, it's all the shit that we are throwing tight spirals through. It's all that shit that we used to ridicule that the North Koreans would say about Kim Jong-un and Kim Jong-il. We used to ridicule. Now, all of a sudden, Republicans or the people who support Trump, have a convenient amnesia of this, or are convenient not listening, or want to go, well, what about Hillary, or what about Obama? But it's like, no, who gives a shit? We're focusing on the president who is representing us in this way out in the world and in our society, and it does erode the civility that we have. What he said to the police about that was insane. That I don't
really
care,
scary.
Slam their heads into whatever. This is ironic in the sense that this motherfucker might be going to prison himself for his stuff.
Well, and again, what is a pillar of our democracy? Innocent until proven guilty.
Exactly.
And all of from Miranda rights to all of the legal precedent is built on that idea.
Yeah.
In that if you say you're going to rough up a suspect, you are violating that principle.
And their rights as a human being.
Like, for instance, with he has the commission to investigate elections, which, by the way, is trying to gather names, of and party affiliation stuff, which is, again, violating basic principles.
Right.
But if it was honest, he would say, look, we believe that there's many illegal votes being cast.
Right.
It doesn't seem like there's evidence that this is true, but we want to investigate and find out.
Right.
He should, if it was nonpartisan, he would say at the same time, and we're very concerned about Russian hacking of the electoral system, and we know that they hack some of the ballot, the voter rolls and things like that. We're going to investigate all of that because we want to make sure that our election system is as fair, as honest as possible. And if it benefits me, that's okay. And if it hurts me, that's okay. Because we want to preserve the electoral system for everybody.
Right.
That would be okay.
Well, there's no nobility in anything that he's doing. It's all self-serving. All of it.
Right.
And that's what's so transparent. And people who are willfully just going on with Trump are the people who think, I can tell he's guilty just by the look of him. And that's the thing, that we can't have that, because at that point we go back to being in Westerns. We go back to the Old West, where it's just it seems like he's a suspect. We're going to string him up. We're going to get, what do they call, lynch mobs. That's what he wants to devolve us to. And I love that people are pushing back. I love that the healthcare stuff didn't pass, not because I feel bad for people who are being screwed over by this healthcare, the Obamacare that was there. Yeah, you're not going to create any healthcare system that is going to help everyone. But Obamacare helped enough people. so even in Republican states, for them to force their senators to not vote for the bill, for any repeal of this bill or any kind of amendment or change to this bill to Obamacare. And there's a reason for that. It's because their people are standing up. That's one of the positive things that have come out of this whole ridiculous administration is that people are way more active than they ever were before. They are shaken out of their apathy.
Yep. They're reading newspapers.
They're reading newspapers, right. The MSNBC and CNN have never experienced higher ratings.
Right.
And of course, and like you said, New York Times is astronomical in terms of their subscriptions. But of course, Trump. The irony of fake news is that Trump is the one fabricating and pushing out fake news at a rapid pace every day. And the reason, this is classic bully stuff. Blame the victim for your bullying of them. Play the victim first before they can complain about you. And that's what he's doing. And he's finding these people who believe and support his lunacy. And he's trying out people like Sanders, whatever her name, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. It's ridiculous to trumpet this crap. It's ridiculous. And it's an insult to her gender to do this. And if you're a black person or a minority person involved in this administration, it's an insult to your minority, your race, because this guy wants to turn us into a dictatorship.
Well, when I was a kid, I'm Jewish and I went to Sunday school. And one of the things, we got hit with a lot of Holocaust stuff when I was young, and too young.
As well, you should.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's some when I was 9 and watching films of dead bodies being piled on each other. That was a little rough.
Okay,
but one thing that got beaten into our heads over and over again was how Nazis and Hitler used the idea of the scapegoat, and the enemy in order to bring the country together. Yeah. And what's interesting is like what I was taught was the idea of the big lie. You start with a big lie, and it's easier to convince people of a big lie than a small lie. And after that, you can do anything you want. And I think what Trump is the master of, and seems to be, whether consciously or unconsciously, a true genius at this, is the many little lies. Yeah, is that there's so many that come out that have no basis in fact. So many of some people are saying blank, or I've heard blank, or what if blank, or without having to present any evidence. And by the time people are arguing about that, there's another one and another one and another one. And so we keep spinning around. You know, with if you look at the Hillary Clinton scandals, there's really 2 or 3 of them. You know, there's Benghazi, there's emails, and then, you know, maybe the charity and stuff like that. Oh, yeah. And those stayed in the news for years. Right. People looking at it and looking at it and looking at them. With Trump, and finding nothing. Well, I say with the emails, they found that they were really stupid. Yes. They were really stupid. Sure. And they did not, like a lot of people, they didn't have a good IT department. Right. They didn't have good security. They didn't know how to handle that stuff, and they really messed it up. Yeah. You know, with Benghazi, it seems like that was a real tragedy that they didn't handle perfectly. Right. Like a lot of things don't get handled perfectly in the very few number of hours that you have. Yeah. You know? I mean, I remember a memo not being listened to about planes crashing into a building during the Bush administration. So please, it happens. Every administration. Yeah. The 4 people is not 3,000. No, it's true. That is accurate math. That's my. Well, and this is the thing too. Is that if there's one person that says this is black and white, that's horrible, those are bad guys, those are good guys, and there's someone else who says things are nuanced and complicated, I'm going to listen to the person that says things are nuanced and complicated because I like nuance and complication. And I know that nuance and complication exists within the world. But there are a lot of people, it's very comforting to know who the bad guys are. Yeah, of course. It feels good to know, oh, I'm part of the good guys. Those are the bad guys. The world makes a lot of sense. Looking at the Muslim world and going, man, things that are happening in Pakistan are very different from things that are happening in North Africa or Afghanistan or in Europe, and that there are different sects of Islam, and there's different, just like every other religion. There's people that are extremely religious and not religious. That's hard to deal with. Yeah. You know, and really looking at what's happening within the Middle East and going, what we should acknowledge is that this is really, really, really difficult and complicated, and it isn't and presenting things as black and white, good guys and bad guys, that doesn't help us solve the problem. No, and it's a shortcut in thinking, and this is what bothers me, because that's what appeals to his base. The simplicity of these very complex arguments and situations in the world. He presents them as if they're so simple in black and white, and they're really not. No. He just thinks that they are. Therefore, he validates these people who think that they are, who can barely balance their own checkbooks, walking around thinking that this guy is absolutely the person to lead the country. He's absolutely one of the most incompetent people. He didn't even know that he needed
51 votes, not 60 votes to pass the healthcare situation, right? 14 minutes later, he tweets like, well, I just meant further down the road. But no, you didn't, you dumbass. You didn't know what you were tweeting. In Twitter, minutes are hours. So 14 minutes later is 14 hours later in my mind, because people move quickly on Twitter. People do not joke. Like within seconds, your shit's retweeted and destroyed. And that's what happened.
Well, the one thing we can say that he knows how to do is tweet.
Yes.
So we can't say that, it's like he's saying, oh, I didn't mean this.
Yeah.
Twitter. It's like, dude, like this is your main groove.
Yeah.
And it goes to, like, going back to the Boy Scouts. What's the Boy Scout motto? Be prepared.
Yeah.
He was not prepared.
Nope.
He didn't.
He doesn't want to be president.
And this goes to the, my way of looking at the world, which I think comes from Boy Scouts. I mean, we talked about with the Cinephiles.
Yeah.
I'm prepared.
Yeah.
Like, I try to show up
always
prepared every single time because I want to do a really good job, and I know that these jobs are hard. If I were running for president, man, you got to prepare.
Yeah.
And and it goes to this privilege thing, this wealth thing of I get to walk into a space and everything works out for me.
Yeah.
So I must think I'm a genius. It's that you woke up on third base and thought you hit a triple.
Yeah.
That's Donald Trump. And he's like, thinks he's an inch from home. And he thinks he's like, the guy thinks he's a great businessman. He's not a great businessman.
Right.
But
the frustration here, Steve, is, and I think a lot of us feel this way, this is not about Democrat, Republican, or whatever. This is the frustration that nothing seems to bring him down. Nothing seems to stay. We're all waiting on Mueller's stuff. What do we do if Mueller comes back, and there's no charges, and there's no indictments, there's no convictions? What do we do? That's what I wonder, because there's no way to impeach him at this point. There doesn't, like, there were some Democratic congressmen who drafted articles of impeachment down in the House, but nothing that caught fire, nothing that's like been a big deal. What they've done systematically is destroy every one of his proposals, like all this stuff with the ban, the Muslim travel ban, that's going to go before the Supreme Court in the fall. This happened with healthcare, all the stuff that happened with healthcare, like everything he's trying to put in place gets defeated in the Senate, or I mean, not in the Senate, in the Senate and also in the courts. So this is the only way we can fight at this point, which is the irony, because we're using our democracy to destroy his attempts to create a dictatorship, which is what the founding fathers, who these people seem to think that they value and honor and put on high, constructed the democracy to do, was to destroy what King George had done in England. And this is essentially what Trump is trying to do. A fat, rich, born into money guy taking over, trying to force everyone to bend to his will, because he thinks he knows better, or he deserves to be these kind of situations. And that's what we were fighting against in 1776, why we created America. So we cannot allow someone like Trump to slide in here, almost like another King George III, and try to do exactly to our country what we were rebelling against so long ago, and have rebelled against in any form since.
Wow, that was good. That was good.
I'm just saying.
No, that was good. So I want to go back to your question, because you started by saying, what are we going to do if Mueller comes back with nothing?
Yes.
And I think the key is, what's the saying is, evil prospers when good men do nothing. Mm-hmm. So the way that Nixon was, is that what finally happened is that the Republicans said, in order to preserve the Union, we have to get rid of Richard Nixon, and then he resigned.
Right.
Is that in the end, and this is why I want to start with this idea of sacrifice and the Boy Scouts and duty, is in the end, we need people to choose country over self-interest.
Yeah.
Is that what's happened with the healthcare bill, which was such a just crazy process, was that the Republicans needed a win for political reasons. Yeah. One of the interesting things I felt with the healthcare bill was at no time did I ever hear a single Republican say what was good about it. Mm-hmm. They said what was wrong with Obamacare,
right?
But they said we have to pass this,
right?
And they said it'll get rid of Obamacare, but they never said this is how it's going to help people. This is how it's going to make things better.
Right.
And I've never seen a major piece of legislation that didn't have someone fighting for why this was great. Mm. And the reason was because they were doing it for a political win, because the Republican Party, to maintain its power, needed a political win. That is putting self-interest and party over country.
Yeah.
And it didn't work for them, fortunately.
Yeah.
Fortunately, is that hopefully what they will learn. And I don't understand how they can look at the Trump administration and go, this is going to be good for us.
Yeah.
I think that we need at a certain point, they need to say no.
Yeah, well, and that's right. That's the only way this is ever going to turn. Because even if you draft up articles of impeachment, people have to vote for impeachment. And if you don't have enough Republican senators voting for impeachment, or Republican congressmen voting for impeachment, it's not going to happen.
No.
So if Mueller finds this stuff and goes forward, we're not out of the woods. Even if he comes back with convictions or possible indictments or whatever, we're not out of the woods, because he can claim executive privilege. He can play this game all day long, and that's what worries me. Like the fact that every one of his administration, every person in his administration is lining up lawyers.
Yep.
Kushner, his son. Ivanka probably has some lawyers that she has like on call when if anything turns on her. Trump himself with that Kasowitz guy who they got rid of eventually, but of course that's the level of people that are defending him. The guy that would get into this vulgar email tirade with just a random stranger.
Well, we just had the White House communication director talking about a guy sucking his own cock.
Yeah,
I mean,
Steve
like
Bannon.
you're the and Karen and I are rewatching The West Wing, and I think of Toby, the communications
just make me
director.
sad all day. Yeah, because I love that show.
It's my favorite show of all time. Yep. This is the communications director.
Right.
His job is communicating the message of the White House.
Yeah.
He calls up a reporter on the record, swears, talks smack about people.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, and this goes into if one thing happens, you can go, that's an aberration.
Oh, that's just but
when it happens over and over and over again. If you say, it seems perfectly reasonable that someone could have an incidental conversation with someone from Russia and not remember it and not claim it. Sure. When it happens once.
Yes.
But when it happens over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And when what's really interesting was when Trump really went on the tirade about Mueller, which has happened in the last few days, it's because the New York Times asked him, what if he looks into all of your financial records? Now, Trump just said, I forget about what he said. If people not wanting to put in their election information, he said, well, if you didn't have anything to hide, there would be no reason for you not to give the information.
Of course.
And it's like, well, what about your tax returns?
Yeah.
Is that clearly based on what you're saying, you have something to hide.
Right.
And so it does seem that there's so much smoke, there's got to be some fire.
There's a lot of fire. We're just waiting for the smoke to clear so we can see it. Yeah. And that's what's so frustrating about the situation, because there is and we're almost being turned into that lynch mob thing that I talked about earlier, where we go, we know he's guilty. We haven't seen the evidence, but we certainly feels like he's guilty. And if you watch Keith Olbermann's stuff, he certainly lays out incredible arguments that are fact based on how Kushner has just sunk the defense and sunk this idea that they didn't collude with Russia, And so if you watch his videos, and I encourage you people, like, if you want to remain open-minded, you want to claim that you're open-minded, you've got to watch this stuff, watch his videos. I try to watch the Fox News as much as I can stomach it. It's really difficult to do because it's so slanted, but you have to hear what the other side is saying so that you can understand how to talk to them when the situations come up. I go insane that what you brought up earlier, Steve, is correct, that people are valuing their self-interest over the continuation of this country. You cannot be so cocky and arrogant that we won't fall as an empire from the inside out, because history proves that has happened to every empire. Yeah. And as soon as they elect someone who has no business being a leader of their empire, in their hubris is what usually signifies the first step in the downfall of that empire. And that's what scares me about Trump.
Well, one of the other things that I think has happened, and we talk about, these pillars of our democracy that are eroding. One of the ones, and this started quite a while ago, but particularly grew, I think, under the George W. Bush, is the attack on expertise.
Yes.
The attack on intelligence.
Intelligence.
Yeah. Is that we wanted this idea of someone that's plain spoken. We wanted the idea of someone we could relate to. And we learned that with the soundbite and with the way 24-hour news cycle works, and definitely with Trump with social media and tweets, that is more powerful than expertise. And it's such a dangerous thing because if you look at our founding fathers, that's a bunch of intellectuals.
Yes.
Jefferson, Adams, Hamilton, these are like really Franklin, Washington, these are smart people. Is that they believed in the idea of knowledge. Yeah. And that, if you went, we go like, oh, the scientists with climate change, oh, the Middle East experts. And it's like, look, if you're going in for surgery and you say, well, do you want the surgeon or do you want the plumber? Right. It's like, I think I want the surgeon. Does that mean that surgeons don't make mistakes? Of course they make mistakes. Yeah. But they're going to learn from their mistakes and they know stuff. Yeah. Like the fact that we have not only Trump as president, but we have Jared Kushner, a guy with no background whatsoever, who's apparently supposed to solve the Middle East crisis and create innovation in America and revamp our economy. Yeah. How? Yeah. How's that going to happen?
It's not going to happen. And when it doesn't, they'll blame the Democrats. When it doesn't, they'll blame people who didn't vote. Just like Trump did right after healthcare failed. 3 Republicans and 48 Democrats let down the United States of America.
This is the really scary one. The really scary one about healthcare is that even though Trump can make Obamacare much, much worse through the power of the executive branch.
Yes.
Because by changing the website portals to the exchanges, by reducing staffing, there's all sorts of things he can do.
Stopping outreach
that can make that health system look worse. And people will go, oh, he's right. Yeah. Obamacare is self-destructing. Right. And the thing, too, is like nobody thinks that Obamacare is perfect. Yeah. It has problems. It has hurt people, unquestionably. Sure. It's helped far more than it hurt, in my opinion. Right. And I literally know people whose lives were saved by it. Yeah. But it needs work. Sure. You know?
So you amend it, you fix it. You don't destroy it and put something in that's going to put 26 million people off of healthcare. Well, and people who have like serious conditions, serious illnesses, I mean, these people, I forget what the name of the organization was that they were showing up in the wheelchairs. They were getting arrested by cops on the Senate floor or right around the Capitol building because they wanted to protest this healthcare situation. That's the thing, you know. It's the motivation, you know. These are real people that you're going to affect.
Well, and they've expanded the idea. Because one of the things the Republican Party has been, and the right has been so good at in the last 20 years, is framing arguments in a way. And, you know, like tough on crime or No Child Left Behind or these ideas.
War on Christmas.
Yeah, War on Christmas. Merry Christmas, John.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
And one of the ones they did was poor people are moochers.
Yes.
They are takers. Yes. These are the takers. And what they're trying to do right now is expand that to sick people. Yeah. Is that because there's just things, and this is just in the last day. Oh, I guess the healthy people are going to have to pay for the sick people.
Duh.
As if sick people are somehow immoral. Yeah. That someone getting cancer or being in a car accident meant that they were bad people, as opposed to everybody is going to be in the healthcare system at some point. Right. Everybody is going to be in there. And that based on the way the medical system works, no hospital can turn anybody away, which means that we are going to pay for it one way or another. Yep. We're either going to pay for it in an intelligent way or we're going to pay for it in a stupid way.
Yeah. And healthy people have always paid for sick people. That's how it works. That's the healthcare works. That's why you want to have universal healthcare, so we're all paying for it. So there's no like kind of situation where things are, or it's all just there for all of us to use, and it's monitored and kept up well and done whatever. Like that's what's so amazing to me is that we say as Americans, we can go to the moon, we can do anything we want. We're America, damn it. And then it's like, well, what about universal healthcare? Oh no, it'll turn into shit. The government will kill it. Blah, blah, blah. I thought we were Americans and we can do anything we want to do. Right. Which the fuck is it? Like, make your mind up. There's inconsistency in thought that angers me to no end all the time, that we want to trumpet American exceptionalism, but then when it comes to something as simple as universal health care, well, not simple in terms of the administration, but the concept is simple in terms of universal health care that numerous other countries across the world have done.
All the industrialized countries.
Yeah, exactly.
One way or another. Yeah.
Exactly. Have done it. What the fuck is wrong with us that we can't do it? That's what's so frustrating to me.
Well, all that comes back to two sentences from Ronald Reagan, which is, government is not the solution to the problems. Government is the problem.
Yeah.
And that
boogeyman of the government.
And that is so powerful and has become such a key framework for the Republican Party for the last 30 years that government is incompetent. Even though if you look at...
all of them want to work in the government.
Well, if you look at Medicare and Medicaid and the costs of treating patients under that versus the cost under insurance, it's much cheaper under Medicare. Yeah. So Medicare is doing a better job. And having now dealt with my dad, who was when he got ALS and was dying, that he was on Medicare. Medicare was awesome. And then having just dealt with my father-in-law, Medicare is really great. Yeah. Is it perfect? Of course not. Right. But it's really great. The other thing I think is that the thing that Trump did that's amazing is that 5 or 6 years ago, I remember having arguments with Republicans about this idea of American exceptionalism.
Yeah.
Is that if you were to say something negative about America, then you weren't being a good American.
Which is ridiculous.
And then Trump switches that to make America great again. Yeah. Which is the polar opposite. It is and the fact that no one goes, what happened to American exceptionalism? Yeah. And the reality, of course, this is what I mean by complexity. American exceptionalism is black or white. We are great. Say nothing bad or you're a bad person. Yeah. Make America great again says we are bad. Everything is terrible. Yeah. And it's like, no, we live in a world where there is complexity. Is that there are great things about America. There are things that need to be made better. There are great things about the Affordable Care Act. Yeah. There are things that need to be made better. There are great things. great companies, great industries, and things that need to be made better.
Yeah.
And that's the real world.
We used to want to do the work to fix, to repair, to expand. Now we just want it to come in a microwave in 30 seconds.
Yep.
And that can't be our legacy as a country. That can't be what we leave on the earth. That's what's so frustrating. We've changed so much. We want everything just handed to us instead of working for it, making our senators and our congressmen work for it, to hammer it out, forcing them to get into the room with members of the other party and talk it out.
Yep.
Democrats wanted to be part of the healthcare situation. It was 13 white Republicans sitting in a room figuring it out.
Yep.
They would not allow Democrats in there, and that's what's so frustrating. And the thing is, there's so many correlations here to the Hitler model here that really unsettle me. The Make America Great Again, what you just brought up, is exactly what Hitler was trying to do with Germany after the end of World War I. When he came into power with the brown shirts, this whole idea was make Germany great again, give the German pride back to the people. And so many people said afterwards, and you can see it in the movie In Judgment in Nuremberg in a microcosm, so many German people, when they were interviewed after the Hitler situation, after the Nazi situation, they said it was because he made us feel proud to be German again. And there's a number of people in this country who want to feel proud to be American again, and they think Trump is the way to do it, and it's so not. Because what he's trying to do is deconstruct the entire country into a dictatorship, which is what Hitler did. And what's going to happen? We're going to get into a shit war. We might get destroyed. We might give up everything. We might lose everything.
Or we might destroy someone else.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and this is the thing. When someone comes up to you and says, you're great, you're the hero, that feels nice.
Yeah,
you can feel pride.
Of course.
But real pride comes from accomplishing something.
Yes.
As you were saying, doing the work. That's where you get to feel real pride. Yeah. And it's not easy. And this, it goes back to kids and Boy Scouts and going out and doing the work.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. How do we solve this problem? Is healthcare a problem in this country? Yeah, it is. Yeah. Is it easy to solve? Even Trump himself said, no one realized healthcare was so complicated. This is going to be hard.
Yeah.
And it's going to take hours and work, to do.
Yeah, what a shock that it isn't as simple as like a 2 + 2 = 4 or like figuring out a crossword puzzle or some shit. It's complex. The reason it's complex is because there's so many things involved in it. And this idea that, I trump out 8,000-page booklet versus a 45-page booklet. I don't want the 45-page booklet when it comes to healthcare. No. I want that 8,000-page because I want every single nook and cranny, whatever that term is, explored and investigated and prepared for. That's what I want. And so when you show me a 45-page booklet, all I see is loopholes to hell. And when I see an 8,000, I see at least there's enough here. At least I can feel like this has been thoroughly researched and seen. Do you know what I'm saying? And so that's what I think is angers me, is that people think these complex issues are so simple, and they're really not. And these are people who haven't done any thorough research themselves into these situations and seen the complex. Like people talk about the Middle East and terrorism, they just go, just ban them all.
That's because it takes work to be an expert. It takes work to be an expert.
Of course.
It doesn't take work to say experts are stupid.
Right.
I'm the best. I'm the best deal maker, the best strategist, the best negotiator. Yeah. And the other thing I want the big, huge, complex healthcare bill. I want that. Yeah. But I also want those senators to get out of that place and go talk to the family that's going to lose their house.
Absolutely.
Because they're deciding whether or not they can afford to do the chemo or not. Yep. Go talk to the kid who needs surgery, but they have no health care, and and the family is right on the edge of homelessness. Go talk to those people.
Absolutely.
Go talk to the millions of people fighting drug addiction right now. Yeah. That's go talk to them and feel their pain. I mean, having just dealt with my father-in-law, and who has had terrible medical problems, and they also had terrible financial problems, and we're trying to figure out this really complicated system of. For him, Medicare, Medi-Cal, and the VA, and trying to get him the best treatment and keep what they could have. And what we finally had to do with him, by the way, was he wasn't poor enough to get Medi-Cal. So we had to get rid of all of his money so he could get health care.
Wow.
Yeah, because Medicare had denied him service at a certain point, and now he needed to be poorer. Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of system we live in. And by the way, we talk about, we don't trust our government to administer these things. Yeah. The VA, when we finally got him in the VA, because he's a veteran. So amazing. The doctors, the nurses, the people giving care there, the facilities was absolutely incredible. So don't tell me that our government can't do great things. Don't tell me that, because if you don't believe that the government can do great things, well, you don't believe in America.
Yeah. Exactly. And don't tell me that they're not allowed to make mistakes.
Of course they're going to make
don't make their mistakes me the reason you deconstruct the entire system. Well, hell, don't you make mistakes? Should I discount you as a person because you made mistakes? You've gone back on your word. You've hurt people. You've said things in a moment of exasperation that you shouldn't have said, or you've cheated people out of money, or you found a way to steal or whatever. Like, should I just discount you as a person completely if you do that? Well, then don't put that same judgment on an institution. Don't put that same judgment on a concept or something like the VA or the health system, like medical hospitals. If the government can, if the VA can do it in a microcosm of the military, we can certainly do it for the entire country. That's certainly possible state to state. And that's what's frustrating to me. It really comes down to this situation that if the CIA people, like, that's their retort now whenever the CIA comes out with evidence about Trump and talking, well, the CIA's made mistakes. Aren't they the same ones that did this or that? Yeah, fuckface, they make mistakes. So do you. Don't judge them by the same prism that you can't judge yourself by. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Well, and calling out someone's mistakes is the strategy to tear things down.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in the people that want to build things up.
Exactly.
I want to see people that go, this is how we're going to make something.
Right.
And we're going to make mistakes along the way.
Of course.
That's how you learn. I mean, the reality about Obamacare is that it is a compromise. And part of the reasons that it's flawed are from its compromises.
Right.
Like, one of the biggest things is all the states with Republican governors who didn't accept the Medicaid expansion.
Right.
And because of that put them in more trouble, and that made those premiums go up in those states. And so it's like, you can't blame the system for the people that resisted that system.
Why explore the nuance when you can just buy the soundbite? And that's what we need to do as Americans, not as Democrats, not as Republicans, not as independents, not as Green Party people, as Americans, is explore these issues and these complex issues and understand them and learn them. Because I get it. You're working 2 jobs. You're doing whatever you're doing. You're trying to struggle. You've got to find the time to understand and explore these issues if you're going to speak about them. Because it just doesn't make any sense if you don't. You're just talking in sound bites, and sound bites don't solve anything. Sound bites become campaigns to keep the dumbing down of America going, and we can't have that. We're not going to survive as a society. We will get too stupid, where another society will advance past us and destroy us.
Well, and this really scary,
and outthink us.
Yeah. Well, and the really scary thing, and this is what's going to make this really hard, is that we exist in the swirling world of social media, fake news, 24-hour news cycle, where there's stuff that's hitting us, and opinion being presented as fact, and non-facts and non-apologies, and the level of analytical skills it takes to navigate all that and separate fact from fiction is really high.
Yeah.
And there have been multiple times, and I think I'm pretty good at this, where I'm down a road thinking something was true and then went, wait a minute, this can't be, I don't think that. And then I had to do 25 minutes of research to go like, nope, okay, that's not true. It's not easy. And so I think of all the people in the world, in the country, man, that's going to be tough.
If you've got time to go down a YouTube hole because you want to see cat videos, you've got time to research a topic or an issue that's going on that's affecting your life or the people in your community. You have time. You just have to make that time.
Well, but it's also a skill set.
Yeah.
Is that separating...
True, a developed skill set.
Like when someone says... what do you say if someone said this?
Right.
That's not the same as saying someone said this.
Right.
Or someone says there's evidence that this. Well, what is the evidence? And then being able to, because there are a lot of, particularly if you watch either MSNBC or Fox, there is a lot of opinion being presented as fact.
Yes, of course.
A lot of it. And there's no separation saying, now we are doing the news, now we are doing opinion. It's just, I turn on Fox, it's all the news.
Yeah, and that's that's what gets to the point. That's what gets to the point. That's what keeps this cycle going. This idea of like, well, I saw it on Fox, because if your president is doing that, which is what he's on numerous occasions quoted Fox News in conversation, in presentation, he's essentially putting the presidential seal of approval on this as news, as actual fact. And that is, or as opinion, as actual fact. And that's madness to me. And it goes back to just to wrap this up, we should go back to where we started with this Boy Scout stuff. The speech he gave, where he was like essentially trying to browbeat the senator to vote for the healthcare system, where he said we needed some loyalty, like you guys talk about here in the Boy Scouts. This whole thing, all that was missing was the hand salute. That's all that was missing. And to see these 40,000 Boy Scouts like cheering him, I broke my heart, but I thank God. But once again, what we said earlier, people reacted to it. So much so that the Boy Scouts had to issue an apology 2 days later. They even stopped the comment section on Facebook where people were destroying them for this situation. And it is a little shady that the president, I think it's the president of the Boy Scouts, is an AT&T CEO who had tried to work out this Time Warner merger with Trump in January. Yeah, they claimed they didn't talk about it. Bullshit. You know, that kind of stuff is there. So it's all kind of like all these, it's just a really, really uncomfortable situation. And them saying like, well, you know, we didn't think the president would talk about bullshit. When has he ever shown restraint? Don't try to play innocent now.
Yeah, I mean, I get they're in a really awkward position
because they asked him to do it.
But there's a standing invitation to the president to always speak to them. How do you say no? The president says he wants to speak to the Boy Scouts. You can't say no. But because and this is the thing, it's like we're continuing to play lip service as if this is normal.
Yeah.
And it ain't normal.
No.
You know, I mean, I don't, there are a lot of things I fault the Boy Scouts for, particularly over the last decade with LGBT rights and all
absolutely.
that stuff. But this one I don't. This one is like, they got stuck in it. And it's the same thing we were saying before of pointing out someone's mistakes. It's like, look, they got a jamboree, they got a president, this crazy thing happened, they're trying to navigate a shitstorm. There's no good way to navigate it.
And not once does Trump ever take responsibility for anything. Not once does he ever apologize. Even Sarah Huckabee Sanders, when they asked, the press reporter asked her about the apology by the Boy Scouts, here's what she said: I didn't see it. Yeah. Why didn't you see it? Because you purposely didn't see it because you could have plausible deniability. And then you said, all I remember is that I was there and I saw 40, 50, 45,000 of our young men clapping for the president and most enthusiastic crowd ever. So once again, this North Korea bullshit. Like it's the most enthusiastic crowd I've ever seen.
Biggest crowd in history.
Yeah.
Best ratings.
All that bullshit, which is just ridiculous and a lie. And this, once again, I want to stress
it's not just that it's a lie; it's that it points out what he cares about.
Yes, right.
He wants adulation.
Right.
As long as he's getting the good ratings, he thinks he's a success.
Or the delusion that he's getting the good ratings. Right. And that's so. This is the thing, and I want to make it clear one more time: this is not about Republicans versus Democrat. For me, this is about Trump. And only Trump. Now, are Republicans seizing power and taking advantage of the situation? Yes, some of them are. Absolutely. I understand that. I respect that. But for me, I only care about getting this guy out of office because he, once again, like at the Boy Scout Jamboree, he sets a terrible example for our young men and women coming up, thinking that this is how they can act, that this is how they can be and succeed in life. And that is terrible because the more we lose morality in our society, the more we lose this ability to be decent and good and be civil, even to people who are suspects of crimes. If we lose the ability to be civil, we lose ourselves and we destroy the very fabric of what created this country. And that's what scares me to my inner core. Yeah. As a lover of politics, as a lover of this country, as a lover of our entire democracy and the history of our democracy in our government or in our country.
To me, it's about values versus personalities. Is that we don't talk enough about values anymore. I mean, you remember when the Republican Party was the party of family values? Is that, what are your values now? And what, all of us need to ask this question. Yeah. What do we believe in? What is important in America? And then judge people not on, finding fault and little things, but like, does this person represent your values? Is this what we believe America is about? Yeah. And the levels of things that our current president has done that has embarrassed and besmirched and corrupted and damaged the fundamental principles of what I think are American values, not political values, basic American values, is terrifying and tremendous. Yeah.
And you've got a young child coming up, and that's it's even more imperative on your end to feel this way,
Well, and what do I tell him?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, Steve, I think we've covered this Trump topic very thoroughly. A little longer than we thought we were going to go. I'm sorry about that if I'm keeping you from something, but I appreciate you sticking around to talk this out. This has been a long time coming, so I'm glad we got to do it on this episode.
Absolutely. And come if you like listening to us talk here.
Yes, tell them where they can find you. Yeah.
There are 50 hours, 50 plus. No, there's probably almost 90 hours of us talking about movies on the Cinephiles.
At least.
Yeah. And most of it is not political at all.
Yeah. Most of it is not. We just talk about, we break down a film, a great film before, we kind of put an arbitrary rule before the last 10 years, and we talk about it, break it down, and analyze its meaning, and analyze the production, and its legacy in film as well. And we have a great time doing it. And a lot of your favorite films are probably on that list that we've covered already.
About Die Hard and Rocky and Amadeus and Star Wars and Jaws and
Apocalypse Now
and West Side Story and Singing in the Rain and on and on and on. Great film after great film after great film.
Absolutely. It's been fun. Steve, thanks so much for coming on the Outlaw Nation podcast. Where can they follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at SR Morris, and I'd love to talk politics with you or talk movies with you too.
And he's good at that. He's really good at that. You guys should do that. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this segment of the podcast. We'll be right back right after this. All right. There you go. Steve Morris and I going at it. We were originally only going to talk for like 20, 25 minutes, and we ended up talking for like 45. And he got in a bit of trouble with his wife Karen, who I love to pieces, and she's a fantastic supporter of the shows that we do on Cinephiles, and also occasionally she'll listen to Outlaw Nation. So I love Karen to pieces. I think she's awesome. But she's the wife, and you can't piss off the wife. You can't be late to the wife. You can't keep her waiting. Like, it's really important. And unfortunately, sometimes Steve and I, we get going, it's a gab fest. So I want to apologize to Karen on my show for any undue harm that came about Steve doing that interview with me. So awesome. All right, well, let me wrap it up because we're way over an hour. You guys are amazing. Thanks so much again, like I said, for all the amazing all the amazing words and messages and words of support on Twitter and on Instagram. Like, I really appreciate it. Like, it's so much fun to do the show, and I hope I'm maintaining the quality of the show. I'm sorry the last couple of weeks have been kind of wonky because it's just really busy trying to get my schedule together. I forgot to post about questions. I really wanted to answer some questions this week, but I promise I will start on the show over the weekend. I will start early, kind of constructing this so that I can have a little more efficiency through the show. So I appreciate you all being patient with me as I learn as I go along, because I really want to keep this thing going and have it be a powerful force on the SK Plus podcast channel. And like I said earlier, please subscribe and listen and download all the episodes on the SK Plus podcast channel, the Schmoes No Plus podcast channel. That's where you find this show and then Wangers and Don't Be a Beardo after Schmoedown, Schmoedown Rundown, all those shows, and the top 10 every Tuesday. New episode dropping there as well. So please patronize, leave comments, leave the star ratings. All of that really helps all around for us. So, all right, here's the deal. And I put this on Instagram, and I want you all, I'm going to read it to you guys, and then I'm going to bid adieu, as the French would say. But I know that I've talked about stuff before about moving forward and all this kind of stuff, so I want to tell you, I saw this. I posted it on Instagram. It was perfect when I saw it. I was like, I got to post it. I said, the fact that you are still getting up every day and trying is a sign that you are brave and victorious. It's about making progress in life, not achieving perfection. The pursuit of perfection sends us down terrible roads sometimes. Either we get too passionate for it and destroy everything else in our lives, including our relationships and our friendships, or we become overwhelmed by it and we don't want to do anything because we're afraid we can't be perfect. Well, put that away. Enough is enough. You can't use that excuse anymore. You got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. You've heard that saying, I'm sure. And that's the truth. You got to get out there, take your chances, fail, and then move forward, right? What is Nelson Mandela said, I never lose. I always either win or I learn. And that's important. Remove the word lose from your vocabulary. Anytime you don't accomplish or achieve what you want to achieve, you're not a loser. You learn the lessons so that when you get a shot at it again, you're better equipped for it. And that's important. You can beat yourself up. You can put yourself down in a hole like everybody else does. But what's going to make you stand out, what's going to make you unique is you learning the lesson from the loss. It doesn't mean you don't still feel the loss and you let it course through your body and you kind of beat yourself up or kick yourself in the ass for forgetting something or not getting something right. That's understandable. That's human nature. But you got to process the loss in a positive way afterwards. And that's when your feelings of wanting to not go into that pit, not go into the sadness or the depression, whatever it is you're struggling with, you want to stay out of that and just be like, okay, what can I learn from this situation so the next time it pops up, I will be better prepared and I won't repeat the same mistake. That's really important. That's how you grow, is learning, obviously, and then not getting caught up in the minutia of a loss and using that as some kind of sweeping indictment of who you are as a person. That's no way to work this. It's no way to work this life. You all are better than that. And I, for one, from all the messages I've received, believe every one of you all can be amazing at or are amazing at it, and I want to support that. So I just wanted to read that as we wrap up the show. I think it's important, so you guys see me doing all the things I'm doing, but just know that I'm doing them all because I push myself out of my comfort zone, and I hustle, and I fight, and I put myself in a position to be successful or to be ridiculed, either one, but I do it, and it's important to do it. I don't want to be Nike or anything, but it's true. Just do it. It just really helps. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Like I said, please subscribe, listen, download, rate, all those things there. Send me your questions if you want to send me your questions. And if you want to reach out to Steve and say you enjoyed what he had to say, please follow him at SR Morris. You can follow me at The Rocha Says, ROCHA. See all the shows I'm hosting and co-hosting. Like I said, the Cinephiles. We're doing Thrones Talk now every Monday morning until the finale. And the finale, we're going to do it live on Sunday night. It's our recap show for Game of Thrones. I do that every Monday. And then, of course, every Friday, Collider Movie Talk, which is a blast to do. And the Top 10 show. I plugged it already a million times, but I'll plug it one more time. Why not? The Top 10 show as well. So stay strong. Fight. Sometimes, keep chill. Don't push too hard. Sometimes sit back and observe and analyze, and then make your move. All these things are important. All this combination, this balance is important. And you'll get to where you're going, And even if you don't get there, it was about the fight. It's never about the results. It's about the fight in your life. That's what matters. All right? All right. And to those of you who have sent me your messages about mental health and your messages about, I got this amazing Instagram message from a person who shares the Top 10 show with their mother who has suffered through 2 suicide attempts and mental health issues. Hey, I'm with you. I've been there. I love you. Keep doing it. Whatever it takes, like I say, whatever it takes to get through that second, the next minute, the next hour, the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year. Whatever it takes to keep you on this planet as you pursue what you need to pursue, do it. Your life is precious. Do it.